above that. I mean, I think if you look at the pushback that I got from people in the White House, including the president, about hydroxychloroquine, was one of the reasons why I felt it was essential for me to, not in a confrontative way, I took no great pleasure out of contradicting the president, but I had to get up just to maintain my own integrity, but also to be standing up for science that the data did not show what they were claiming. I mean, anecdotes are okay to give you the spurring on to take a look at a scientific approach, but to be ruled by anecdote is folly.
Right, and that obviously is what happened. I mean, we heard it, right? There was the ingesting bleach. I mean, there's no anecdote on that. Obviously, that one was just
right.
That one was just beyond the pale. I mean, Dr. Birx obviously had the unfortunate. She was unfortunately there. What went through your mind when he said that?
I just said, oh, my goodness gracious, I could just see what's going to happen. You're going to have people who hear that from the president and are going to start doing dangerous and foolish things, which is the reason why immediately those of us who were not there said, this is something you should not do. Be very explicit. The CDC came out, I think the next day, and put in one of their publications, do not do this. I got asked on a number of shows, certainly on CNN, and I said, absolutely, this is not what you want to do.
So you came out and said that, and as you point out, you took no pleasure in contradicting the president, but you had to do it multiple times. And as a result, Dr. Fauci, you got disturbing threats. You've talked about some of them, and threats against your wife, your children. You got that envelope with white powder, and you feared that could have been something deadly, anthrax, ricin. All of this coming because you came out and were disagreeing with the president. I mean, when you saw what happened on January 6th, the insurrection, right, the people who believed every single word that he said, and they were there echoing that, did it seem inevitable to you? Because you had firsthand experienced the threats of violence?
Yeah. Well, it did. In fact, what it did to me is to just underscore the intensity of the divisiveness in our society. Because if merely articulating a commonly held public health message of something that every public health official in the country would agree with, because I articulate that publicly, if that triggers death threats against me, harassment of my family, my children and my wife, somebody sending me an envelope with powder that explodes in my face to scare me and my family, boy, that tells you the depth of the divisiveness. And then January 6th, to me, was like, oh, my goodness, here it is in its ultimate. It's purely a reflection of divisiveness that is so deep that it's disturbing. And to me, you know, as a person who, you know, I don't want to seem melodramatic, who loves our country, I just see that being nothing but destructive, and it's very scary.
I mean, you get an envelope and it explodes in your face. I mean, at that moment, what do you think?
Well, you know, it's very interesting, Aaron, is that this is the life I've chosen, and this is what I do, and this is my job. You know, I'm not a hero at all, by any means, but I was very fatalistic about it. You know, as I said in the interview with the New York Times, I said, oh, my goodness, it's either a hoax or it's anthrax, and I have to take ciprofloxacin for 1 or 2 months, or it's ricin, and I'm dead. You know, there's nothing. But then once I got past that, I realized what a terrible effect it would have on my children, because until the examination came back and we found out that it was harmless powder, my children were very, very distraught by that. And that's more painful to me than some jerk threatening my life. I mean, that's just the way it is with me. I just don't want to see my family get involved. I mean, I chose this life, and this is what I do. They did not choose that. They did not choose that life.
Well, no, and to be honest, when you chose that life, I'm sure you didn't expect anything like this to happen. I mean, you know, to this point, Dr. Fauci, and I know you say you're not a hero. I know you're well aware that a lot of people see you as one, right? And perhaps you're a reluctant one. But you made a decision every day to stay, right? To stay and do what you were doing because that was your calling and you felt like it was the right thing to do. Can you tell us something that you were able to accomplish by staying? You know, something that you feel specifically you were able to make better by staying through all this?
Yeah. You know, even though there was a lot of extraordinary, surrealistic things going on, like what you were just referring to, the anecdotal, the people coming in with strange ideas about anybody calling up and saying, I think this works, and takes as much footing in some parts of the White House than the data that I would present as a scientist. I felt if I left, there would not be that honest broker there. And, you know, it would leave Debbie Birx and Bob Redfield sort of, and Steve Hahn kind of alone there. So, I mean, they were presidential appointees. I was a non-presidential appointee. So with all the threats that I'm going to fire him at that, I was not going to get fired. So I felt that if I stood there with them and continued to speak the truth, I would be representing science at the White House publicly. And I felt if I left that would be a void there. Not that there weren't scientists there. I mean, with all due credit, you had Bob Redfield and you had Debbie Birx and you had Steve Hahn, and Jerome Adams too. I mean, Jerome was fine. One of the things that's unfortunate is that there are, and I know people who are very, very much against the last administration, understandably, that there are some good people in the White House. I mean, back then, in the Trump administration, some people on the task force who really cared. They were put in a very difficult position.
Yeah.
I mean, I said to myself, I'm sorry, I'm not going to stand by and not object. And I did. And I had to do that. That's just my character. There's no way I could not have spoken out. And luckily, I mean, I didn't get fired. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't think they could fire me anyway.
I don't think they could have. I think you did put yourself in a position where that was impossible. So you mentioned Debbie Birx, and I know that you think highly of her. You've worked with her since the 1980s. You know, we've reported she expressed interest in keeping her role in the task force during the Biden administration. And I actually remember Olivia Troy, you know, who was Vice President Mike Pence's attaché at one point, right? She talked about Dr. Birx sort of traveling tirelessly around the country with her rolly bag through this, right, trying to tell people to do the right thing, even when the president didn't back her doing that. Do you think that Biden should have kept Dr. Birx on?
You know, Aaron, I don't want to make that judgment. I think that what the Biden administration did right in the beginning was a good thing. They wanted to start right from scratch, fresh, and bring back their style into the White House. And I got to tell you, you know, not only what the president is saying publicly, but what he's told me and the team privately is so refreshing, because it wasn't like he was doing it for effect. He was just saying, with everything we do is going to be based on science. Science is going to speak. And then he said something else that I really liked.
Yeah.
He said, we're going to make some mistakes. We may stumble. But when we do, you know what we're going to do? We're going to fix it. We're not going to blame anybody. We're just going to fix it. Boy, you know, when you saw me get up in front of the White House press room about 20 minutes after that, everybody said you had a very refreshed look in your face. It was because I just came out of a conversation with the president that was really very refreshing.
All right. Well, Dr. Fauci, I appreciate so much you're taking the time to talk to us and to keep talking. You know, I know it's exhausting. You've been tireless in it through all of this to tell the truth to the American people. And thank you.